Are we filming? Yes, we are. So, welcome to another of my videos. This particular one concerns mainly this model, which is the Guildford Mini Executive. Let me show you inside. So, Filofax Mini Executive Deluxe Leather. Well, if we ignore the fact that some of this doesn't appear to be deluxe leather, as we can see, there's some. I will mention it because it's important to point out the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of each binder I review. And this is a kind of a review. Although I've had this particular binder for a while, I don't think I've reviewed it. But before we get on to the good stuff, I do have to mention this because, as we know, there are certain models where which are described as being made from deluxe leather, and they're not quite so deluxe inside. In fact, this particular one, which is my Guildford Mini Extra Slim, I've actually taken the trouble to remove the pocket because I don't use pockets. I do use this one at the back, but I've basically this very, very loose leather which just falls off in chunks. I've just removed it because there is a reason behind that. Let me just take this piece of paper and I'll just put this Mini Executive here, and I'm just going to pretend I'm right-handed. So I'm going to write like this, like this, like this. Okay, so and then I'm going to remove this and see what effect that writing has had on this. And as you can see, there are quite a few bits of leather that have just come off. I didn't press very hard, but there's a bigger bit. And so this isn't ideal if you are someone about town and you're in a restaurant and they've just laid a fine Irish linen tablecloth. Although, to be honest, the last time I was in a restaurant with a fine Irish linen tablecloth, I just can't remember that far back. But you can imagine that this is not ideal if the maitre d' comes along and is looking at your wine and sees these bits on his nice clean tablecloth. He's going to be disapproving of your Filofax. But we are where we are. So this is the Guildford Mini Executive, and if I compare it to, well, I can't compare it to this one because it didn't have one. But basically, it's got the Guildford Mini Extra Slim has no pen loop, no strap, and this Mini Executive doesn't have a strap, but it does have a pen loop on the left-hand side. It's an inbounds pen loop. As you can see, I haven't really used it. I don't think anyone has used it because it's still lying perfectly flat. I can ignore that. I might cut it off maybe if I start using this binder in anger instead of my Guildford Mini Extra Slim. But essentially, I bought this as an alternative to this because these Guildford Mini Extra Slims are very hard to get hold of, as you're aware. This gives you another option, and there is an advantage with this one, the Guildford Mini Executive, when compared to the Guildford Mini Extra Slim, and I will get to that in a minute. But essentially, the mechanism is the same. It's a 5-ring mechanism. Both of these are 11 millimeters. I discovered recently that Filofax have announced that all their mini-sized binders are going to have larger rings. But to be honest, I quite like the 11 millimeter rings, and indeed the Plotter brands, Plotter Japan, Plotter USA make them as well. You know, not make them, but they're the Japanese brand Plotter, who now distribute in the USA as well. Alas, not in the UK. But more about that later. They use interestingly, 11mm rings for all of their sizes. 5 ring, 6 ring, personal size, they call it the Bible size, but it's personal size, and also the A5 size. Every single one of their binders, as far as I know, use the 11mm rings, and their philosophy about this and the justification of having rings no bigger than 11mm is because it's a less of an encumbrance to people when they're writing, and I dig that. I concur with that. So we've got same sizes. You could, depending on the thickness of the paper, you could probably get about 60 pages, which as an inbox or a mini diary, who knows, but it is what it is. But I love the mini size, and of course, if it's rather than dream of a mini size with bigger rings, just carry 2, and that way, in my opinion, you can have this open at your diary, say, and this as your to-do list, and then you can transfer to-do lists onto your diary, or vice versa. But having more than one Filofax open simultaneously is a bit like having more than one window open on your computer. It can be quite advantageous doing that. But anyway, I'm digressing. Let's put away the Guildford Mini Extra Slim and have a look at this, because there is an advantage with this binder. In fact, actually, I'm going to get my ruler out, because the advantage pertains to the size. So, Guildford Mini Extra Slim, Mini Executive, Filofax Mini Executive, and you can see, if I line them up, there is a significant difference. Now, apologies for those in the States who are using the imperial size, but if I just, you can do a screenshot and then your own conversion. So that is the size of the Guildford Mini Extra Slim, and this is, I'm trying to avoid the parallax errors here, that is the size of the Mini Executive. And you can see that there is a significant difference in size vertically, and also if we turn them this way, there's a significant difference in size width-wise, and this is important. So again, a freeze frame opportunity coming up there, and let's do the same thing with the Mini Executive. Okay, so there is a significant advantage, and this advantage affects the choice of paper. Now, you could use the personal size, not the personal size, the mini sized, the mini, I won't say standard because that's getting things confused, but this paper is the mini sized paper that Filofax use and supply. So you can see that there is not much difference in height. In fact, actually, let me take these out so that you can see. So this is true A7. It's 74 by 105 millimeters. So this is an actual. I'm moving around here. Getting everything, trying to get things tidy. So if we look at this, there's not much difference in height, maybe about 2 millimeters between the mini-sized Filofax paper, the official size, and A7. Not a lot of difference in it. But if we look at this way, doing it this way round, there is a significant difference, isn't there? And the reason for that is because if you are using dividers in your binder, you want to have some space for your dividers. Although, as you can see here, with my, in fact, let me just do this, because this is a bit of a scrappy video, but forgive me. But look, so I have now put the official Filofax paper in there, and as you can see, there is just enough room for dividers, for tabs, if you have tab dividers, without impinging too much on the pen loop. So that's part of the design. However, if you're not interested in pen loops and you're not interested in these relatively small official sizes of paper, as you know, I like to maximize my paper real estate, and so I like to go slightly wider. And this is the key. This is actual A7. It's 74 millimeters by 105. How do I know that? Because apart from measuring it, if you take a piece of A4 paper, and I'm not going to do this particularly neatly because this is a video that I'm trying to keep as short as possible. If you fold it once, fold it twice, and fold it 3 times, that gives you your 74 by 105 paper. And then if you do that, and if you mark, I'm just going to do it, okay, very, very roughly. So if you put a template on here, so I'm going to use my Rhodia dashboard, my dashboard from one of my Frankenfaxes. If you just mark it, and then you get a hole punch. This is a hole punch, a single hole punch that I quite like. They don't last forever, but they do last a reasonable amount of time. And this is a 3 millimeter punch. So I don't know if you can see this. Yes, of course you can. So I just do that with an A4 sheet, and then hey presto, I have now got 8 sheets of paper for a minimal cost, less than a penny, to be honest, or maybe around about a penny. 500 sheets of cheap photocopier paper would cost maybe £5 in the UK. And so here I am. I have 8 sheets, and I just can cut along, and then suddenly I just do the hole punch operation once, and then I have got myself 8 sheets which I can then cut, and I can do that with a penknife on the train, or maybe I've got a pair of scissors, but I don't normally carry some scissors, and then that is a very effective way of doing it. And as you can see, it matches up. So this is A7, and this is why I really like this particular model, the Guilford Mini Executive, with the slightly wider measurement, because, and here's the thing, here I have the Guilford Mini Extra Slim again, and inside I have got some of this true A7 paper. So as you can see, it's basically I've cut it and I've inserted it in here for demonstration purposes. Now look what happens when I close it. It sticks out quite a lot. And so a lot of you don't like that. I'm not bothered about that. I really don't mind. Ideally, I like to have because I don't use dividers, I like to have my paper, if at all possible, more or less flush with the edges of the binder, because it looks very, very like a Moleskine or a Rhodia notebook. Other brands are available, and so it's very, very good for thumbing the edges to open at a certain point. So this paper doesn't really fit in here. What I do in my Guilford Mini Extra Slim is I use the Rhodia version of A5 paper. So this is a Rhodia dashboard. It's cut from a Rhodia what is described as an A7 notebook, but it is actually slightly narrower this way by about 3 millimeters. and it's significantly taller. This is 120 millimeters tall, whereas A7 paper is only 105 millimeters tall. So there is a significant difference. So for the Guildford Mini Extra Slim, and here is a piece of paper, you can see the corners cut from, this is literally taken directly from a Rhodia notebook, and I love this paper. This is 80 grams per square meter Clairefontaine paper, and I love it. Especially I use this paper if I want to keep it, because it is fairly resistant to tearing. This paper is this is actually bank paper, a sheet of A4 bank paper, which is only 50 grams per square millimeter. Sorry, 50 grams per square meter. And so I actually, because I tend to use a G2 when I'm making notes, I rather than a fountain pen, or to be honest, if you have a thin nib, you can get away, a narrow nib, you can get away with writing on a paper as thin as this. But it's only cheap bank paper. I use a lot of this, but essentially the perfect paper for, notwithstanding the fact I tend to use any paper, even bits of junk mail I cut and put into here. So I'm not a paper snob. Although I can be, I suppose. It depends. It's certainly for reference material. I do like having paper all nicely aligned and fountain pen friendly, but certainly not as an inbox. No, not as a diary. But essentially, for using my Guildford Mini Extra Slim, my favourite paper is my favourite format is what I call the Rhodia format, i.e. what they describe as A7, which is slightly different to the conventional A7. So it's slightly taller, 120 millimeters, slightly thin, slightly narrower, so only 71 millimeters there instead of the 74 of the real A7. But they're interchangeable. Here we are. We've got some A7 Rhodia and some A7 where I've just folded this is 1/8 of an A4, and you can see here that there is quite a difference. So the Rhodia is much taller. The the standard A7 is wider, so it does stick out a bit. But when it comes to this, and this is the advantage I suspect that other people will prefer. Not many people will want their paper sticking out like this, but the Guildford Mini Executive does manage to keep it all in one place, and it is a perfect fit for traditionally, I suspect most people would like to have their paper not sticking out. And if we look in here, we can see that not only is the Rhodia, let me turn this over and get it. So here we have the genuine A7. Here we have Rhodia's version of A7, and you can see that the Rhodia is just within the dimensions of the Guildford Mini Executive, and even though the traditional A7, the real A7, is wider than the Rhodia, we can see that it will stay within the confines of the binder even when it's shut. As you can see, the pen loop is in the way a little bit if you are using standard A7 paper, but as an inbox, as a tool that you can have in your pocket for jotting things down, this takes some beating. It's not so wide that it is an encumbrance to a jeans pocket, especially since you don't have any leather securing strap. That would be a bit of a deal breaker, I think. But both of these work in a jeans pocket. There's not much difference in them. So if you prefer to have your paper within the confines of the binder, go for the Guildford Mini Executive if you can find one, and good luck. But there are that, you know, I managed to find these. Both of these come from eBay sellers, and it works. It works. And we're just talking about a tool, a working tool here, in my humble opinion. And so it is. You know, you could leave these. You could leave these pockets here. There is an advantage with compared to this one from a perspective of this full-length pocket will actually accommodate. Let me just put these in. So this is true A7 paper, and as you can see, the pocket is deep enough and tall enough so that you can actually get spare paper inside the pocket, and it works. It doesn't impinge on the rings at all. And on this side, just to demonstrate, rather than trust me, let's just do it. So again, so will it impinge on the rings? No, not really. I think that's absolutely fine. If you have maybe 20 or 30 sheets on here, well, you'd have to just push down. Don't shut it like this. Obviously, you have some common sense. Push that down, hold that down, and so that it does actually fit. But this binder as an inbox takes some beating, because certainly where if you're using A4 paper, it means that you can use all the paper. You can literally cut 8 sheets from a single sheet of A4, and you don't even have to be particularly accurate. You don't have to mark any lines. Just fold it once, fold it twice, fold it 3 times, and then punch it. If you take a punch with you, and this is more portable than a traditional Filofax punch, and so it actually is very, very cost effective to run this as a business tool and an inbox, and one of the reasons why I do this is because I am inclined to jot one idea on each piece of paper, so that I can then, when I'm home or whatever, I can mull over things and I can reposition these without having to rewrite things. So I tend to use a lot of paper, but it's fairly economical paper to use. It's a fraction of the price of the traditional Filofax paper, which is very, very good quality, and in terms of time, you can just buy a pack of it. Unfortunately, one of the things that puts me off is you don't seem to be able to. I don't seem to be able to get hold of the economy packs of 100 in the mini size. So you are compelled to buy these in very small quantities of it's either 20 or 30 sheets. Forgive me, I can't remember because I don't use it. But the other thing that I don't like is the fact that, let me just do this. Okay, I am going to, okay, so I've just used the 3mm hole punch, and you can see that the standard holes that Filofax use on their mini-sized paper are actually larger than they need to be, because these rings are actually quite slim in the external diameter of the metal here, and so you don't need to have such a large ring. Such a large hole. Personally, I think 3mm would be better. It just means that your paper doesn't waggle about too much. It is the perfect size, I think. 3mm, perfect size for mini-sized rings here. I'm not sure whether the larger rings for a mini-sized binder are thicker than these, but certainly on these 11mm rings, this seems to be the standard sort of size that will easily go through a 3mm ring without there being excess play, which there would be. Let's actually do that just to demonstrate it. So let's put this in here. So I'm going to waggle this one. I'm going to waggle this one. Okay, so it's much of a muchness, but you know, personally, this works for me. This one works, but you know, there's clearly some extra play there that you could do without. So thank you very much for watching. I'm up to 25 minutes, and I could have done this in 3 minutes, but I hope I hope that the way my mind works when I chew over these ideas finds favour with you. When I start these videos, I don't really have an idea where it's going to go, and I just find myself it just takes off, and I do have control over what I say, but I find that it just I'm basically talking to just you as an individual watching this, and so I try and imagine that I'm just talking to one person. I mean, there may be dozens of people watching at the same time, but I try and talk in a I just try and talk in a on a one-to-one basis. So I hope that you enjoy my video presentation style, but without waffling on any more, I would just say thank you very much for watching. Until my next video, goodbye.